Hello silly humans, William the Robot here to wake you up to the positives of having an emergency fund. To begin, let's discuss what an emergency fund is. An emergency fund is a financial safety net for any potential future mishaps or unexpected expenses. Many financial planners recommend that emergency funds should typically have 3 to 6 months' worth of expenses in the form of highly liquid assets. But lately a lot of YouTubers are pushing out the idea that you do not need an emergency fund, because it doesn't offer any value.
And my goal on this channel is always to provide you insight and perspectives that are different from the textbook crap that you hear from everybody else. It's always the same crap. Have an emergency fund, have at least $1,000, then build up a reserve of 3 to 6 months of your expenses so you can sit on your ass and be happy. Well, I think this is stupid.
I am not attacking them for saying this, but I believe they have a responsibility to explain the negatives of not having an emergency fund. Here are a couple of reasons why they believe having an emergency fund doesn't offer any value. First, they say it loses money from inflation, but it can save you money too. For example, if you have no emergency fund, you will need to sell out of your stock positions to help pay for your living expenses. And when you sell your positions, they might be down, making you have to sell at a loss, or the shares could go up, making it more costly to buy back in. I believe the reason why these YouTubers don't see any need for an emergency fund is because they believe they have consistent revenue coming from their YouTube channel and other areas like rentals.
I retired just around here too, mid-2018, so all of these purchases are actually since I retired and now doing the YouTube channel again. But just for context, we can see here, heavy buying, retired, didn't have as much capital here. For the record, this is all stuff from selling shares. Basically, I didn't have a whole lot of savings at this point. I'd retired, so not earning a whole lot of income, just some recurring stuff from old finance biz. And here we haven't had a whole lot of capital available until the YouTube channel started, which funnily enough worked out perfectly. There was another buying opportunity this year and I suddenly had all of this new income and cash that I did.
Like they don't believe they need to worry about any financial emergencies. But people go from rags to riches and back to rags all the time, especially when they have this arrogant belief that such a thing can't possibly happen to them. Things can be lost very easily, especially with YouTube kicking people off the site and with ad revenue going lower due to certain things. Or you could suffer a grave injury that would make creating videos impossible for you. Emergency funds are meant to carry you through such scenarios. It is not like you need that much money in your emergency fund, especially if your expenses are lower. The other reason many YouTubers say you shouldn't have an emergency fund is because the opportunity cost. So this is true, but it leaves you open to risk. For example, you take your emergency fund to buy your house, but then you lose your job out of nowhere, due to random stuff going on in the environment. This popular YouTube philosophy also fails to take into consideration of opportunity cost the other way. For example, someone who has an emergency fund will be able to buy when many others will be forced to sell. The guy who used his emergency fund to buy a house and then lost his job right after, might now have to sell the house to someone at a lower cost or sell other of his assets at a loss. This example can also be used with company shares. When the market is going down, you can buy in at much lower price from people who have no emergency fund and have to sell. You can also use your emergency fund without touching it by using it as collateral in a loan. And your emergency fund doesn't have to be in cash. It can be made up of different type of stable assets like precious metals.
I love gold!
Like with everything in life, there is always risk, so it is up to you filthy human to decide what risk you are willing to take. Personally, I would rather take a guaranteed microscopic loss from inflation than losing a lot of money due to needing to sell in a down market. Here's the question dealing with the giveaway: what type of emergency fund do you have? Have a nice day, silly human.